One additional administrative item.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same time, motion carried. No resolutions tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Administrative items, discuss, take appropriate action on Trinity Church Festival on August 24th, 2022, playing 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah, they're just playing music. Just want to notify the public that they'll be playing.
Make a motion to approve this.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. The next thing that was added was the land sale on Gage and setting the public hearing for contingencies, right?
Whoa.
So,
You'll need to set a, I'll make a motion to set a Board of Equalization,
Board
Planning
of
and-
Adjustments.
Planning and
and
Zoning, Adjustments and Appeals.
Public hearing.
I could keep coming up with equalization.
Because
And a
I
Board
would
of
second
Adjustment
his
and
motion.
Appeal.
And a public hearing for the vacation of the small segment of Gage that is adjacent to Outlot A on July 11th.
July 11th, starting at, I'm guessing 5:30.
Okay. At 5:30.
Yep.
So is that all the meetings that we need
For that
to
night.
make that discussion? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and Glenn's got the second. You're not gonna repeat what Andy just said?
No, I couldn't do it if I had to.
Okay, hey, any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. We have one more meeting before Park Days?
Before,
No,
No,
after.
no.
It'll be the Monday after.
So, just a reminder that the chamber has everything listed for Park Days. The flyers are out. The parade's Friday night. Fireworks is 10 o'clock. Nice bands playing every day.
Don't know if it's inappropriate to say this in this forum, but the movie's also moving up to 4 o'clock, so that we're not in the way of the parade and what happens with the fireworks.
oh, that's a great idea.
Okay.
Perfect.
And probably just so the council is aware too, if you haven't been told, there will be the parade will be starting at the high school, going up Buck Avenue to Main Street, down Benzel Avenue to 5th Street, past the Tony Downs plant because of the detour. So
So when we go up Buck now, the question comes, can we put no parking signs along Buck Avenue because it's so narrow?
yeah, that would be the plan. Now, wait, I guess we did not enact a vote for closure of those roads for the parade.
Yeah, I thought we approved the parade
Well, we
route.
did, but we
approved
didn't.
the
The
parade
parade
route.
route's changed.
Remember
So
they came in? Yeah, you approved
Yeah, we
two of them.
approved.
There were two
we
routes.
approved both
Okay.
options.
Yeah.
I
So
just
then
had
we're
Ben
good.
put out no parking signs that he does for
Yep.
Seal Creek.
Yep. That's what we'll be doing. That's what
Okay.
we do that along the parade route normally, so, and we'll send out code red notices and let people
If I
know.
remember, we weren't sure which route they were gonna take.
Yeah.
So now we know. Okay.
Coming
Yeah,
up
sounds
Buck,
good.
yeah. Anything else on CIS communication?
Just for public information, the golf tournament is full on Sunday.
Really?
13th, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I do have one that I wanna bring up. So there are some things that are happening up at Tony Downs now. They're doing some staging of 18-wheelers up by their main, not their main plant, but the new, what used to be Vandenberg Foods. And I'm not, so what's the city ordinance on that? Can you do that? I mean, where does the where does the commercial property stop and the residential property start?
Well, and maybe the bigger clarification is, like, there was some communication, I thought that was gonna turn into like a thaw area, and then they were gonna use a short shuttle trailer to move thawed chicken down to the plant.
And they do, so I was confused at
I
why
saw-
they're using that as a staging ground.
I
They
saw,
shouldn't be sitting on that road.
Well, I know, and I just want, Tony's very important to town. I know
I
that
know that.
we need them.
But,
But, and we all understood there'd be more truck traffic in the area. The street signs have helped some. Rob and I saw last week that it doesn't always work, but.
By the way,
so-
thanks, chief.
Yeah, but I don't think any of us thought that road, and Mike, you said once, is it any different than the old Pennant building or Vandenberg? Well, yeah, it is. I mean, Tony's, they're busier than heck. I think they do 10 times the truck traffic that
Yeah,
Pennant did.
plus the trucks are bigger than what they were.
And they
in the
didn't have the
70s.
road going behind the building. And
Right.
it's fine if there's one or two, I don't know how it does across from the loading dock, but when you have 5, 6, 7 trucks sitting there idling all night, you have the reefers, you have the trucks, and it's loud.
I know.
So I'm a little concerned about that, because there was a staging area down by the triangle.
Yeah.
They were supposed to come out of there 1 or 2 trucks at a time.
They
and
were
now
supposed to be
they're-
radioed to
they're-
come
They're
out.
stacking.
But they won't,
And
and
I
I-
drove through it myself, there's like 7 trucks up there.
I think, Rob, you've seen the
What's-
same
what
thing.
does the
Tony says
ordinance
they can't control the truck.
I think that's the big issue. I mean, I'm having those conversations. They tell the drivers the instructions. You got all these drivers from outside of town that are coming in here. They give them
Who
the
don't
instructions.
care.
They
I
tell
got it.
right. They don't care, and that's having those conversations with them. They've been told where they're supposed to park, where they're not supposed to park, when they're supposed to come up, when they're not supposed to come up, and they basically park wherever they want and decide they're going to stay there. And when people complain to them, they say, "Not my problem," and they walk away. So, we're all kind of struggling with the same thing, and it's difficult too to issue citations for things like that because, you may set the example with that person, but the next guy coming in or gal coming in the next day has no clue what action you took the day before.
And they are using
So
second.
as a
street.
council, how do we fix that problem? Because that's not, pardon my French, cool.
well,
It's not cool.
the other thing is, I think I'd just like some clarification at some point. I don't know if it's something where we'd have to reach out to Tony's as a city.
Well, Tony has a map that they give to all the truck drivers. It's all drawn out.
But I'm saying clarification from the standpoint, like, I was on the initial impression that they were gonna be using like a 40-foot trailer that the same guy was gonna be driving every day
He does.
to back.
He does.
Nah, there was a 53-foot truck as I was coming up here. I saw it like out in Benzel for 5 minutes trying to back into that loading dock, and I was like,
T&K usually hauls all the
Typically,
Process.
90% of the time, too,
Well,
is backing in.
back down, and the
Or
trucks
west
Jim's talking about right now are the trucks that they stop
But
at
I'm saying
Down's
it's all
Foods
part of
and
the
then they
same-
drive
it's
up
all
and
part
they
of the
park
same
on the south
problem.
side of the building, and then they wait their turn to get unloaded.
Well, I don't think
That
we're gonna
line
get
of trucks is getting
No,
to
no,
be
fact,
5
I
and
would
6
say-
There
long.
was 7 one night.
I would
you
say
know,
90%
well,
of their
yeah,
support.
I guess what I would ask for is, just from a procedural standpoint, what they would like their workflow, or what they would like their traffic flow to look like. If they're gonna stage them at the triangle area or down in that area, and bring them up to thaw at the old Vandenberg building, and then transfer, just just for public information, because I get the question all the time, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know, sometimes I see a 40-foot trailer backing in there with thawed product, and other times I see it looks like a full reefer truck with.
So
Well-
I can sort of explain that. My question is this: how do we force the issue that their staging area is by the triangle, which is a commercial area?
Well, so is.
Well, technically, their lot is a commercial lot,
Right.
too.
I mean, that's where it gets a little fishy.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think you just ask them to first say what is your plan, or what is and that's maybe the concern. But
So did
what
JJ or
would you normally
Mike
have
or
it
anybody
operate like,
respond
and
to
why
you?
isn't it operating
So
that
I
way?
can explain why they park in one area and don't
Would
use
you
the
like
other
an
5
opinion from
That
your
I
lawyer?
found out.
Yeah.
Plus, I would like an opinion from our lawyer.
Sounds good. All right, so
What do you
my
think?
opinion is that I think the recollections of the council are correct as far as what we were told that were going to happen, and they're clearly not happening the way that it was described to us. Now, whether that's a Tony Downs issue or an independent contractor issue is one question. But if we put Tony Downs on notice that citations will be issued to any of the drivers that are illegally parked in residential areas throughout the city of Medina, control over, but it is significantly different
Yeah,
than
so-
what my understanding of the situation was supposed to be as well.
Respectfully, I disagree. Tony Downs completely controls this.
Well, I mean, if you have ICs that are doing certain things that are illegal activity, you can't necessarily be held liable for that independent contractor's ignorance or ignoring Tony Downs' information. What I hear Chris saying to me is that Tony Downs is giving these drivers the information about what they're supposed to be doing, and they're just not doing it. So I don't necessarily. I mean, if it's a Tony Downs employee, I 100% agree with you. But if it's an independent contractor, then it's a completely different animal at that point. So it just depends on what the nature of the relationship between the driver and Tony Downs is. So while I don't know that I necessarily want to give Tony Downs the benefit of the doubt, I think in this instance we should give them some notice that Tony Downs employee or not, these folks are going to get citations when they're breaking city ordinances. Period. Amen. I mean, I think that's the best way to curb.
But
How
Patrick
big
is
could-
parking on their property up at the up at their Mad X building and having 6-7 trucks running against city ordinance is what I guess.
Probably not currently, no.
Well, if they're running at night causing a public nuisance, that would be something. If residents are complaining about noise at 2 or 3 in the morning,
Which they are.
we have. There you go. You have.
I mean, as long as we have
you
a
have a
purpose
right
stand
to
on it,
quiet
yeah.
enjoyment of your home, and if just the mere parking of these trucks is upsetting that by having 5 or 6 of them there at night, then potentially it could be a public nuisance issue. I don't know. I think maybe Rob, Chris, and I maybe need to talk about it in more detail before we take any affirmative action. But I just feel like I'm hearing a couple of different things. I'm hearing on the one hand, well, they're parking only on their property, but they're also sitting near the triangle. They're doing this and that. I mean, when it comes to if it's illegal activity, I feel like Chief
I'm
Brady
not-
will direct
I'm not even
his
concerned.
folks to prosecute people if it's required. You know what I mean?
I'm not even concerned if it's illegal or not. I would just like to know what their plan procedure is to know if they're not following their plan. I guess I would just like to have either in some sort of writing or some sort of,
Well,
communication saying that the plan is to have, staging here and loading and unloading here.
Do I have that hanging up in my office?
So I would argue that part 2 of that is, where does the commercial area and the residential area begin?
But
That needs to be a part of that conversation, I would argue.
And then, Chris, have you sent any correspondence over to them in recent history asking about this issue, or has this just been brought up on the fly and we're?
No, this is on the fly, and I brought it up, and I will own that.
In the past though, Patrick, no correspondence has been given. It's just been communication over the telephone on issues that we've had, some
But I think
property damage and.
Hanson's were in here
Yeah, we
during
had that
the
problem
tax
with property
meeting
damage.
complaining about the
And
tax.
the
What's
part
that?
2 of that is, who wants to live next to that noise? I get it, it's reasonable. There's a point to where there's a reasonable, but yet, let's not get crazy.
Patrick, I think what set all this off is some crabby old man sent a text to all the council members and city
No.
administrator when he couldn't sleep the other night, so that's what started it.
Well,
I'm
here's
surprised I didn't get it.
I thought of you.
easily send over an email to the usual suspects going, was our understanding, this is what we're seeing, what's going on. And I mean, obviously a little bit more specific and professional than that, but I think that rather that may be the best way to answer the question to start. If we get no response, then Chris can send a formal letter, and then if we get no response from that, then maybe I can send a letter. Every time I do, I tend to get their attention, that's for sure.
So, Patrick, I would say this, so Jim Peterson's common sense side, we need to balance this. What does right look like? And I'm not quite sure what that is, because on one hand, we love the fact that Tony Downs is here, because they do a lot for the community. On the other hand, we need to get their attention, and I don't know, we don't know how to do that.
I don't know, things have been pretty quiet with Tony I mean, I'm just putting that out there. It gets a little bit tense and stressful when we get engaged in, drawing lines in the sand. So I mean, you can draw lines in the sand certainly, but I think in the past, Chris has effectively communicated with them regarding things and gotten appropriate responses, at least over the last 2.5 years in my experience. So I think we just go with that route as a starting point, and then, if we need to go more aggressively, we can. But that's my take on it.
So I guess what I would ask is, if we have to go more aggressively, what's the next step? I'm not saying we have to go there, but what would it be?
Formal letter.
Well, I mean, in the past, it's been correspondence from me, or setting up in-person meetings. We have that, and that hasn't necessarily been what I would consider to be the most productive, but it certainly moved things forward. In other circumstances, you could ask them to have a representative come attend a meeting and ask questions from the council. I don't see that that's completely out of line or out of sorts. But like I said, I feel like Chris has effectively communicated with the powers that be over there in the past, and I think that that's the way to start. But the next step may be to have them come to a meeting and discuss the issue in an open forum if they're willing, or an in-person meeting. I mean, I think if I recall correctly, it was myself, Jane, Chris, and who else from the city went to that meeting where we were at their place. You remember, Chris?
Yeah.
It was a really not fun meeting. If I
No,
remember
I
correctly.
sat in the corner and took notes.
I know I went to a couple of those and they weren't real fun.
Yeah, it was Mike, and I think it was either Mike or Tony was there, and I did most of the talking for the meeting, other than what they had to say.
Yeah, because they came with really fancy suits on.
So, I guess my thought on this is, if we were to move to a certain level of citations and stuff, my guarantee is that majority of them are not gonna be T and K.
Yeah.
I believe
Agree.
they're not
You're not
gonna,
gonna be the primary.
it's not gonna be your primary drivers of T and K.
No.
I believe
No.
that your citations are
No.
going to individuals that are out of town and they don't give a crap. And we can have the discussion with Tony. I can definitely call Jason or JJ and lay it all out
Actually, I
on
will
the
take
ground.
this one on. I know someone who talked to Mike Downs. to fix
Okay,
this.
but it isn't T and K, I can guarantee you, and I think, Jim, you probably know that by the side of their trucks, it isn't T and K.
Well, and this is,
Well, it'd be nice if they put some mufflers on them, though, instead.
yeah. But there's again another issue that Tony's doesn't, and I will tell you, in talking with Jason down there, he will tell you, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he'd be like, give him a citation. It doesn't bother me. We told them what to do. We told them where to go. We tell them where to sit. We tell them when they come up. They decide they're going to show up to the plant and wait outside the doors. When we told them to stay down there, give them a ticket. So he's not going to have an issue with that. But again, we can issue that person from out of state a ticket, but tomorrow somebody from a completely different state and a completely different company is going to come up here and we'll have no idea what the interaction
But
we
at some point,
had.
it's not like there's 100, or 50 different companies that truck for Tony Downs. It's
All I know,
probably
here's
10.
the
And
example.
after 5 or 6 of their drivers call and say, "What the hell? We got a ticket." They're gonna be like, "Well,
Here's
Listen.
the example at 5 o'clock today, Cody, when I came, because I have to come in the back way in. Anyhow, I came in, got to Main Street, wanted to turn right. I couldn't get out on Benzel because the Hirschbach driver couldn't get turned on to 2nd Street that he wasn't supposed to, and he never stopped down there. He drove up there. And he turned on,
A lot of them are going down 2nd Street where they're not supposed to.
and he turned on his flashers, and then he had his arm out the window like this, going, "Go around me because I don't know where the hell I'm at." And he's sitting in the middle of the road. So how do you fix stupid?
So,
well, do we have no truck signs on those roads?"
We
There
do.
is,
We
but-
do, and I
mean,
don't
not that it's
know.
gonna solve it,
to
but
be honest,
it might
I think we're
help.
talking about two problem sets here. The construction problem is one, because that is a total dumpster fire.
Well, but that
But
doesn't.
the part two of it is the fact that we've got folks that are now staging up at what used to be Vandenberg Foods. That, to me, is a second and separate problem set.
Well, because he didn't even stop at the plant. He was trying to drive down 2nd Street. He's also going the wrong way. and he can't even get back up where he needs to go.
So,
So he has to go back around anyhow.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
think
not
that's the
asking for a vote on
difficulty. I mean,
council.
the day that Jim called me on the truck that was parked in front of his driveway, I had already been up there not less than an hour before that, with somebody that had parked their semi truck right in the middle of the street in front of people's driveways, but blocking the lane of travel, and went in to get paperwork and was in there for 20, 30 minutes.
I got it. I'll rent you my man cave as a satellite office.
I was hoping to get a new office, Jim. It doesn't need to be yours, but if
No,
the, if
the only question
the
I
fridge
have
is
is-
stocked.
What is it this council can do? Can't make this decision tonight. What can this council do from a punishment perspective? Because as much as I hate to say this on live
I
camera.
don't think that this is illegal activity or anything related to Tony Downs. I think this sounds to me like independent contractors that need to be cited until somebody gets the memo.
so
Yeah, well, so here's my point though. We had a saying in the Air Force when we were taking prisoners of war in Iraq. You shoot
We're
the
not
first
in the Air
one,
Force
the rest get in
anymore.
line.
Well, you're in.
So
you're in
how do we
public
shoot the
sector.
first one?
Subject to local ordinances and rules. I understand you're in the Air Force, sir, and I appreciate your service, but the reality is, most of what you've had in the service is not applicable to.
No. That wasn't my point.
Unfortunately.
No, that wasn't my point. My point was, we had a saying, you shoot the first prisoner, the rest get in line. So how do we punish the first person who does this wrong big enough so the rest get in line?
You're assuming that those other prisoners are gonna see the violation, and I think that's where we're gonna have the disconnect. I think that we have people from all over that are coming in, and it may be different companies, but I really think that half these drivers have never been to Vidalia before, and they don't know where they're going. They get lost, and they're driving up every street. And the other issue is with the size of trucks we're talking about, you know, is our infrastructure on Second Street, Center Avenue, Fourth Street designed to handle that kind of truck traffic? And I would say it's probably not.
I think to make any progress though, we'd need the procedure that Tony Downs wants to execute in some sort of writing, and I don't know if we can get that from Jason or JJ.
It's already, I think it's.
It's up on Chris's wallet.
So if you have it, that would be great, so that I know. The noise ordinance that's on the books now, that we can enforce,
Yes.
whether it's public nuisance or noise violation. And then maybe, some sort of correspondence with Tony Downs notifying them that there's a problem.
So I will take care of the correspondence with Tony Downs.
Yeah, just make sure it's in writing.
Yeah, right. I'm with you on that.
Can I
totally.
approve
But
it?
what I wanna know is how much can we
Glenn, can you
Can I
approve
review
it?
it before you send it to him, Glenn?
Can the attorney approve it before you send it?
Yes. What I wanna know is, how can we jack up the rates?
Well, I don't know.
How-
I don't know that you're gonna
Totally
be-
explain this poorly.
The-
My point is,
No, you
make the
can't.
first one really painful.
Well, number one, all rates are already established, and if they're established by ordinance, then we have to amend the ordinance, which then will take at least 2 months.
Okay.
Or else,
Alright.
otherwise you can do resolution on some of the fee structure, but I don't believe that's on fee structure.
So I think we have to think that through, because this is, I mean, I really am thrilled that Tony Downs has totally expanded in this town. But there are some things that are happening in the residential areas now that are starting to mess with some residential people, which is not kosher.
Well, I feel like if enough people are willing to make a complaint to the police department regarding it, then, you know,
But
citations
Oh.
can issue.
I don't wanna dump this on the, I don't wanna dump this on the MPD. I mean, this is,
Yeah, but that's where you have the documentation.
I don't know what other.
but they have to be able to lay something out that
Document this.
means.
What better way to
They gotta
document
put
it?
something
I
on
don't
the
want
window
pressure to
that
be
gets their
inundated
attention,
with this,
you know what I mean?
with these, you know, I mean, let's be honest, from a criminal standpoint, kind of frivolous things, but at the other hand, if you want something to be done about it, that, you know, writing a stern letter isn't necessarily gonna do it. Citing these truck drivers pretty quickly will have some impact one way or another.
You know, the only other thing that and you can probably attest to this, Jim, what do they use? Probably 4 major carriers. And if when you're having that correspondence with Mike Downs, if they notify the trucking companies that their people are getting lost when they come to Madelia, and they're causing a nuisance because they're not following the rules, and you talk to the trucking company and not the driver, I think you'll end up with a
But
little.
that's where I said, is a company's only gonna have so many drivers where they're gonna get a ticket and they're gonna call the company and say, hey, every time we go there, we get a ticket. Well, okay, the company's gonna, I would hope, send out some sort of memo. I don't know.
But you gotta remember, those 4 companies probably have 500 drivers each.
Yes.
And they're
How
hiring new
many of
people
them
every
can-
day.
How many of them can read?
Sure that.
I hate to say
And
that.
they can read but one line.
Cody, all I'm
Yeah.
saying is, when you put that ticket in the window, it needs to be like lethal.
Well, yeah, but it's not.
So-
Yeah, it's already set.
Anyhow, we've probably gone far enough on this for tonight, haven't we, Patrick?
Please, for the love of God, let's move on to the next thing.
Okay.
There isn't another thing.
Yeah,
I'll
there
make a
is.
motion. What? Oh,
We don't need to do the EDA, the EDA meeting because we have to go to
I
public
thought you
hearing.
meant to, oh, you're gonna,
But we have to go to closed session.
you're going to closed session in this meeting or in the EDA meeting?
No, we're going to skip the EDA meeting because all that's on the EDA meeting was to discuss the sale of that property, but I think we really discussed it in the public hearing.
So now we're going to recess this and go into closed session.
Correct.
Oh.
Thanks, Jim.